Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom. Giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator, the Maker of heaven and earth. My name is Yeshsarai of the tribe of Dan of the nation of Israel. This particular presentation, brothers and sisters, we do not intend for it to be long, but, brothers and sisters, we do intend to bring this information out to the people. This presentation is called Slavery in the Continental Congress. It is essentially, brothers and sisters, 20 slides. And we're going to be going over the Continental Congress, the people that was involved in it, in slavery, and how it led in part to the presidents of the United States after the fall of the Continental Congress in the 1770s, brothers and sisters, and into the 1780s, and then culminating off with the presidents of the United States who were involved in such. We hope and pray that everybody is well and will be better. So, brothers and sisters, let us get into this particular matter for a reason and edification purposes. Thank you for that. If I can be heard well and people are in good spirits, please type in the number 4. If I can be heard well and people are in good spirits, please type in the number 4. We're going to start, brothers and sisters, with the slideshow. And we're going to start off with this in prayer and go on from there, brothers and sisters. Most High, God of our forefathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the true, the mighty, the living, and the only. We come before you at this time, O Yah, to say Torah for all that you've done for us. We come before you at this time, O Yah, to say Salak Lanu for all of the wrongs we've done before you. We come before thee at this time, O Yah, to say, Ki Ataha El Hagadol, you are the great God. Wa Ein Shaweh Laka, and there is none like you in the heaven, by Shemayim or by Adis, or in the earth. Be with our minds, our hearts, and our thoughts, and cause us to be a success, O Yah. Be with our deeds and our attempts before your high and holy face. Strengthen us where we need strengthen. Cause us to not be arrogant. Let the spirit of humility run between us as brethren, sisterin, nation. We ask for all these things in your name, O Yah. Hallelujah. Amen. This presentation is focused on they of the Continental Congress and their involvement as slave owners. We hope and pray you are well and will be better. Thank you for that, brothers and sisters. Please subscribe to the channel. We are on Mordeh Yeshaya history lessons. Thank you for that, family. John Dickinson. He was a founding father of the United States. Also was a member of the First Continental Congress. In 1768, he wrote the song, the Liberty Song. Ironically, in the song, a line says, speaking about liberty and speaking about freedom, speaking about equality and speaking about being liberated, while this person was a slave owner. So we see the hypocrisy in this particular matter. Let's continue with the time allotted, family. Peyton Randolph, slave owner of over 20 people, was in office from 1774 to October 1774, and again in May 1775 to May 1775, and he was from Virginia. Now, this is a particular person that I chose to use as the thumbnail in this particular case. Why? Because he being associated with the Continental Congress was associated with the people who you call the founding fathers. This country was founded, according to the governor of South Carolina, upon slavery being its Republican edifice. brothers and sisters, the Republicans and the Democrats were both involved in the slave trade, and both involved, whether internationally or domestically, in this particular case. Now, why do we ever so often go over this? It's not to stir up anger. It is not to stir up hatred. What we do this for is for edification purposes. I am not, however, going to play Sambo or coon, for the lack of a better term, by saying there are black people who are not righteous. We already know that. But no disrespect intended. Why is it that in many cases, when we talk about the evils that was done to us as a people, as said black people, you always got somebody to say black people ain't always right either. We already know that. What you're attempting to do is to minimize the captivity and the oppression that we went through. That is not going to be on this channel. You understand? So let us continue, brothers and sisters, with this. Henry Middleton, slave owner, over 700, was in office from 1774, October that is, to October 1774, from South Carolina. That's where he was from. So we already see one from Virginia and one from South Carolina. Both of them involved within the slave trade. Both of them involved in being slave owners. We're going to show why we go over this for reference purposes. John Hancock, is that where they get the term, your Johnny Hancock kind of thing? Inherited slaves. Was in office from May 1775 to October 1777. Also from November 1775 to June 1786. 1785 to 1786, pardon me, from Massachusetts. He was a slave owner by inheriting slaves in the 18th century. Brothers and sisters, on this channel, we've gone over the fact of who they refer to as Anthony Johnson, being by some the first legal slaveholder by a permanent slave in 1655. Yet, when you research the matter of John Punch, which we're going to type in right here, you can look this up in your own time. John Punch, in brothers and sisters, 1640, 1641, over a decade before the matter where Anthony Johnson was made a permanent slave. So these are things, because they try to minimize the role of what happened with us in our oppression, are these videos made. Slavery didn't really happen. There's no way the slave ships could have ever existed. That's why these videos are done. Let's continue, family, with the time allotted. Henry Lawrence, slave trader, was in office from 1777 to December of 1778 from South Carolina. Henry Lawrence was a big person involved in the slave trade. He, coming from South Carolina, dealt with the matter of the slave trade from a particular place called Charleston. I remember in elementary school, they had us singing a song, Charleston, Charleston, made in South Carolina. Come to find out, we were being made to sing songs that they still, in the year 2000 and 2020, was commemorating the slave trade and what happened. Charleston, South Carolina was to South Carolina what New Orleans was to Louisiana regarding the slave trade. A major port in it, a major matter in it. Let's look at something, brothers and sisters. Remember, all these gentlemen that we're going over all lived in the same time frame, right? So let's look. If you have Henry Middleton being a slave owner of over 700 in South Carolina, we definitely know that he and Henry Lawrence were friends. in more than one way. Let's continue, brothers and sisters. Was in office from December 1778 to September 1779. John Jay had a teenager as a slave. John Jay has a college named after him on 10th Avenue and 11th Avenue in New York City. John Jay College. Good for law school. And he was an attorney. So we can see how they memorialize the people who were enslavers of our ancestors. Again, this is not to spark up hatred, anger, or anything of that sort, but just let it be known for reference purposes. Now, I remember watching a video. The video was about Anthony Johnson, the black man who was said to be the first permanent slaveholder in the United States. The video is online, and the audience and the presenter were both what you would call white of today. Very, very quiet was the audience. What they were trying to do is marginalize, minimalize the captivity. Those who do know, and you can look up John Punch in your own time. You can look up Sir George Yardley, as we've gone over, in your own time. He died in 1627, and he had permanent slaves that was delivered to the person in 1619 in Jamestown, Virginia. He already had that, and he was the governor, lieutenant governor also, of Virginia in the 17th century, over a century before John Jay here. So they have generations into centuries of oppressing our ancestors. So if he died, I'm talking about Sir George Yardley, in 1627, having already been a permanent slave holder, how was Anthony Johnson in 1655 the permanent slaveholder? Because they don't expect, I say in no disrespect, people to study, to put two to two together, date, timeline, names, and geography. Because those lies are being promoted is why these videos are done. Let's continue, brothers and sisters. Samuel Huntington, not a slave owner, was in office from September 1770 to July 1781 from Connecticut. Thomas McKean was in office from 1781, July that is, to November 1781 from Delaware. Now, when I researched this, I wasn't able to find out whether he was or was not a slave owner. But, and it's not to slander nobody, they say that the second president of the United States, John Adams, was not a slave owner. Yet he's the same guy when he spoke to King George III of England, was talking about the slave trade and not suppressing it. Wait till we get in this presentation about Lincoln and see the information that comes up. Subscribe to the channel, we asking you all. John Hanson, slave owner, 11 slaves, was in office from November 1781 to November 1782 from Maryland. See how some of these names are similar? John and Thomas. And here we got Sam or Samuel, John again. Here we got Henry. Here we got John again and Henry. Two Henrys, both from South Carolina, that were slave owners. But let's get back to the slide and continue in this presentation. Hopefully, again, that everybody is well and will be better. All right. We ask you all to comment, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for that. Elias Boudinot was in office from November 1782 to November 1783 from New Jersey. When I researched this, I wasn't able to ascertain whether he was a slave owner or not. But he did come from New Jersey, and New Jersey was a slave state during that particular time in the 1700s, as was Pennsylvania, as was New York. New York State was a slave state until the 1820s. So even if these people from, quote, the north of the Mason-Dixon, coming from, say, Delaware, correct me if I'm wrong, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, where slavery was legal, even if they were not slave owners, they definitely knew of it and did not, correct me if I'm wrong, condemn it. Sometimes they say your silence is admission of guilt. Let's continue, brothers and sisters. Thomas Mifflin, not a slave owner, was in office from November 1783 to June 1784 from Pennsylvania. Here we run into another Thomas, as we see. Do you see that all of these dates and the look of all of these people had to be concurrent with each other, be they slave masters, slave owners, or not? They were all friends, brothers and sisters. Just like, no disrespect intended, the said conscious community. Oh, they're really against each other. But their commonality is to be against Israelites. You understand? But, sidebar, when Israel, and by that I'm talking about us, the true house of Israel, get into the matter, get into the subject, present our case, I remember one time being told, well, all of that stuff, you really, no. See, sidebar. Back in the 1970s, when John Henrik Clark and Dr. Yosef Ben Yochanan, and then later on, other people into the 1990s, like Dr. Malachi Z. York, was speaking against the scriptures, all in unison, and speaking against Israelites. Nobody, correct me if I'm wrong, was saying you shouldn't sit there and speak against Israelites. Now, when Israelites respond back, it's like, oh, why are you going there? Similar premise with this. That's in the past. Let it go. Don't even mention it. And when the black man talks about the oppression that happened with black people coming from Africa to the Americas, it seems to be, what about others? What about the natives who were slaves? What about the Irish who were slaves? As I said before, the Irish were enslaved by the British. That is an Irish and British problem. You understand? 1784 is when Pennsylvania became part of the colonies. It was a slave state. So this guy that was part of the Continental Congress from 1783 to 1784 definitely was in one way, shape, form, and fashion involved in that, even if it wasn't in his personal home. Richard Henry Lee, slave owner, was in office from November 1783 to June 1784 from Virginia. You see, the ages of these people have to be over 40. 30s and up. They were all in cahoots. They were all friends, brothers and sisters. Let's continue. Nathaniel Gorham was in office from June 1786 to February 1787 from Massachusetts. Arthur St. Clair was in office from February 1787 to November 1787 from Pennsylvania. What was so special about 1787? The Revolutionary War basically is ended. America is going to declare their independence while enslaving others. That is the significance. Let's continue, brothers and sisters, with the time allotted. Cyrus Griffin, slave owner, was in office from January 1788 to November 1788 from Virginia. 1788 stands out because that is when, correct me if I'm wrong, the British was saying, in what is referred to as the Dolben Act, and I'm going to type that in, brothers and sisters, Dolben. All right, sorry about that. Dolben Act of 1788, right? Is when they said how many people can fit upon a said slave ship. So when you got people saying there's no way that the slave trade could have happened, how do you have an act that talks about it? That is a whole lot of making up of history and dragging yourself in the mud as white people or anyone else to sit there and state that you were the enslavers, but people wanting to be Americans so bad now online are saying that the slave trade didn't even happen and that we was, quote, already here. But there are laws regarding the slave trade. We're going to get into on this channel after this about the matter that happened with Thomas Jefferson, as we did in the past, when they decided to make it a law to ban the international slave trade. Again, anybody, as is commonly seems to be done now online, we were not slaves, so you got to be able to explain how do we get names like Griffin, St. Clair, Gorham, Henry Lee, Mifflin, Boudinot, Hanson, McKean. Let's go on, brothers and sisters. Huntington, Jay, Lawrence. How are we getting names like John and Hancock as black people? Henry and Middleton, Randolph. How are we getting names like this? Knowing, like Malcolm X stated, people where we come from as a people don't sit there and have them kind of names. So what then is your land, language, and culture? See, when we say we the house of Israel, let's answer that. We're saying our land is in the east, our culture is the Torah, and our language is Hebrew. When you're saying we were never slaves here, what then are you saying? And that we were indigenous to this land, the slave trade never happened, we are autonomous. In other words, we never came from no other place, we are just from here. While some in that, quote, community are saying that Africa is the motherland. If you in one breath is saying that Africa is the motherland, then how are you saying that we didn't come from mother? That makes no sense, brothers and sisters. But when you find people saying Indians got their reparations and we can too, that's really what it boils down to. I'd rather not that blood money that they're going to tax anyway, brothers and sisters. Remember, every dollar ain't a good dollar. Remember the situation with the police in Maryland? And the city of Baltimore paid his mother for the death of her son. Once you accept that, you can't take them to court after that. That's why every dollar ain't a good dollar, brothers and sisters. You know? So we hope and pray that everybody is well and will be better. This again is not to incite anger. This is not to incite wrath or so forth. This is more so to just let the record be known for reference purposes. Let's continue, brothers and sisters. Say what? It's history. George Washington, 1732 to 1799. He was president from 1789 to 1797. His vice president was John Adams from 1789 to 1797. John Adams lived from 1735 to 1826. He was president from 1797 to 1801. His vice president was Thomas Jefferson from 1797 to 1801. Thomas Jefferson lived from 1743 to 1826. And he was president from 1801 to 1809. His first vice president was Aaron Burr from 1801 to 1805. And then again, his vice president, being someone different, was George Clinton. There's a black man named George Clinton, if he's still among us, who was a singer. See where we get these names from? From 1805 to 1809. Why, brothers and sisters, did I put this up with the time in that particular manner? These dates go from 1732, from the birth of Washington, to the timing of Thomas Jefferson's death in 1826. That's the better part of 95 or so years. Let's do the math so I won't be incorrect. Let me pull up my calculator with the time allotted, right? We have, brothers and sisters, 1826, take away 1732. 1826, take away, not plus, sorry, 1732. Yep, 94 years. My ballpark was right in the time frame. The better part of 95 years, in this case, actually being 94 years exactly. And all of these dates, from the birth of Washington to the death of Thomas Jefferson, all correlate with the 1780s, 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 1780s. So you see, and that was the point in putting up that time frame, because all of these people that we see here in the Continental Congress, which when it fell, they wound up getting the presidents of the United States after that. They were all in cahoots one with another. They were all friends, brothers and sisters. That's the point in that presentation. That changes things with the looking cat in that particular case. Continue. Stay tuned for the presentation to come at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hoping and praying that everybody is well and will be better. Brothers and sisters, comment, like, share, and subscribe. I am open to constructive criticism. You see my number across there, 908-587-4841. Reach out to a brother. Subscribe to the channel. We're going to have another presentation at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, a little over an hour from now, about presidents honored in ownership. Part 4, touching on James Madison, who was the president after Thomas Jefferson. Who was the governor of Virginia and who knew the gentleman that we just spoke about. Thank you for watching. We ask you all to comment, like, and share. We ask you all to subscribe to the channel. We hope and pray you all are well and will be better. Shalom. And please check out the website, Danitepublications.com. These books you can get on the internet, brothers and sisters. Each of them being $12, except this one, being circled, and I'm going to circle it again in red, if we will. Right, from Averis to Alabama. That one right there, that book right there, brothers and sisters, is on sale for $10 online for those who are interested. The Fatah sale. From now to December 7th, which is the beginning of Hanukkah or Hanukkah. Fatah, from Assyria to America. These books you see here being circled, you can get them on Amazon, called From Assyria to America. This one you see here is $10, as pointed out, for those who are interested. Giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator, the Maker of heaven and earth. Care to reach the author? Contact me at 908-587-4841 or by email at YYISRAEL, the number 22 at yahoo.com. Shalom, brothers and sisters. Most High be with you all. Shalom.